Well, good to see you, Colin. Good to see you, J-Mac. J-Mac wearing my favorite shirt. Love that look. So here's what jumps out to me, Colin. The Bengals concern me for the first time all year in a negative way. So the only person who I think's been higher on the Bengals last few months than me is you.
Yeah.
However, two things have jumped out to me, and then the injury stuff. The first thing jumped out to me is, I got to tell you, and I'm not the old man that yells at the cloud of the two of us. That's more your role. But I didn't love the coin flip celebration. It felt a little eye off the ballish to me. It felt like it was a little inappropriate given the context. And then Joe Burrow after the game, and that's your guy, and I think he's the second best quarterback in football. He's right when he says their window is open his whole career, but I think it also somewhat ignores the fact of the matter is this might be the most talent-rich team he ever has.
Yeah.
Because they haven't had to pay him. Yep. They haven't had to pay Chase. They haven't had to pay Higgins.
True.
And then they did get a little unlucky with their road to the playoffs being Baltimore, then in Buffalo, then in Kansas City if the bracket holds. And if Burrow has struggled against anyone this year, Colin, after those opening couple games against Pittsburgh and Dallas, it's the Ravens.
Yeah.
Against the Ravens, he has 215 yards and then 217 yards, passer rating in the low 80s. That defense has done well against him. If the Ravens get Lamar back, I think that's a very scary matchup.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I think the Bills are going to be able to roll over Miami, assuming Tua doesn't play.
Yeah.
All of that concerns me for the Bengals. And then lastly, 2 weeks ago they lose La'el Collins. Now they lose Alex Kappa. That's 2/5 of the offensive line. That's their big offseason additions. All of that, and lastly is this. It usually doesn't go this smoothly for this long of a period of time without a surprising hiccup.
Yeah.
And the Bengals haven't had that yet. All of that concerns me for them.
I want to talk about Aaron Rodgers. He went to the podium after the loss, and, he's always thoughtful. I never doubt that. But one of the things he said was, this team may want to get younger at quarterback. And my takeaway, I slept on it, was they don't want to get younger at quarterback. They want to get more committed at quarterback. Because Burrow and Herbert and Mahomes and Allen spend the offseason getting better and working with teammates, and you don't. And I think as they draft another receiver and tight end in this draft, because that's what the Packers need, they're concerned that, Aaron won't be there. And we'll go through this whole thing again where we don't get our offense right until December. So I think the Packers, if Aaron would say, okay, I'm off the ayahuasca stuff, I'm in. But I don't think that's what Aaron is anymore. And that's fine. That's his choice.
Well,
your takeaway.
Listen, I think the Packers, and I said this a month ago, I said it 2 weeks ago when I was filling in for you, and Packer fans said I was crazy and said I was wrong, but I stand by it. When the Packers were 4-8, their season was over. Oh, but Nick, if they beat the Lions, they'd have what? Gotten the opportunity to get whacked by 30 and by San Francisco in a week?
Right.
Congrats. I thought Green Bay was literally title town. I didn't think you had the standards of let's sneak into the playoffs just to say we did it. When you're 4-8, your chance of winning this year's Super Bowl is over. And as it turns out, they couldn't even make this year's playoffs. That was when they needed to pause, not end, but pause the Aaron Rodgers era, play Jordan Love for a month, so this offseason they would know, okay, does Jordan Love stink? If he does, we won't pick up the option, and we're going to kind of have to be held hostage by Rodgers because he's our only option. Is Jordan Love good but not great? Okay, well then maybe we see if we can trade him to one of these teams that desperately need a quarterback and improve our team so Rodgers can compete for a Super Bowl next year. Or is Jordan Love awesome and cheap and we want to go with him? Then we can just get out of the Aaron Rodgers business on the same timeline we got out of the Brett Favre business. Now they're driving blind. Now they either have to just blindly go with Jordan Love or let Rodgers potentially hold him hostage again. And for Rodgers, And I've given you credit on this one before, but this is like, one of the many fine wines in your cellar, Colin. This take is aging quite nicely. 2 years ago, let me quick timeline. 3 years ago, Aaron Rodgers gets whacked in the NFC Championship game in San Francisco. After the game, says, I wish we were able to have one of these games at Lambeau. It's different there. The very next year, at Lambeau, winnable game. He has a terrible fourth quarter, loses to Brady. The very next year, at Lambeau, off a bye, divisional round, playing Jimmy Garoppolo. The Niners don't score an offensive touchdown. He has a terrible fourth quarter, back-to-back 3-and-outs. They lose. Then next year, we are now getting earlier in the calendar, conference championship weekend, divisional weekend. Now we are at week 18 against Jared Goff and the Lions. Winnable game. Aaron Rodgers tries to throw a pick to start the fourth quarter. It gets called off. Does throw a pick to end the fourth quarter, and they lose. All at Lambeau, all his favorites, all winnable games. That's a disaster. That is flatly a disaster. And there's you go back 7 years, Colin, or however long, when they played Atlanta in the conference championship game, and that game starts 31-0. That's not, that's not on Aaron. That defense couldn't stop those guys, so be it.
Right.
This is 3 years in a row. At home, you had you were the favorites in the game, and showed the fourth quarter. That's a bad problem for a guy that's about to be 40.
Yeah, when you age and you get less committed to your craft, it could be law, it could be politics, it could be sportscasting, it could be football. When you age and get less committed, this is what it looks like. You're not good in crisis. Now, I want to go...
In America, that's not a problem for Colin Cowherd. Let me tell you, Colin called me out of the blue last night, talked shop for 45 minutes. I had to pretend I had to walk my dog, just get off the phone. I'm like, I get it, Colin. This is how broadcasting works. I got to go. This man is committed into his, I don't know, his silver years, if that's what we call it. But go ahead, sorry.
Philadelphia is fascinating. First 10 weeks, they didn't turn the ball over. They were healthy. They were literally like Georgia. They were road grading people. Yeah. Now they're turning the ball over. Now they don't have their Hall of Fame right tackle. Now they're not healthy. And I looked this morning, I'm like, I'm not sure what they are. What are they this morning? You tell me. What are the Eagles? I have doubts. I like their roster, but I got doubts.
I mean, the team that peaked too early?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's... Guys, and the bye is not what it once was. Over the last 4 seasons, Colin, if you remove the Chiefs, teams coming off their bye in the playoffs are 3-3. The Titans lost coming off the bye, the Packers lost coming off the bye, and the Ravens lost coming off the bye. So you also, over the last few years, we saw the Ravens have an unbelievable regular season with a somewhat unproven quarterback who had been to the playoffs the year before and struggled, and get whacked in their first playoff game. The next year, the Steelers started 11-0. And they got whacked in their first playoff game. Last year, the Cardinals were 10-2, and they got whacked in their first playoff game. Now, those last 2 teams didn't have a bye. But and Eagles fans get mad at me, but if they are being honest with themselves, when you guys were 11-1, if I told you at the end of the year you were going to be playing your worst football, you were going to be the most injured you had been, Jalen would have either missed games or not played well in games over the last 4 weeks of football, and you are going to be playing in round 1 either, the Michael Myers of the NFL, Tom Brady, or the Dallas Cowboys coming off their best win in 5 years, the playoff win over Brady, there's reason to be concerned in Philadelphia.
No.
There's no denying it. That's not being a hater. If this was a college football season and we get to the playoffs after 12 weeks, they're the big favorites. That's not who they are right now.
Okay, brevity is not your hallmark, but we've got a minute 30 left.
It's not.
Mahomes' second MVP. What does it mean to his legacy?
Oh, well, you know what? I'm just glad that we're all just... You know how I knew Mahomes won the MVP?
Why?
Because the day after the season ended, nobody talked about the MVP discussion. Did you see that? Was that on your rundown, Colin? Was that on any of the shows?
That's
no,
funny.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. It's like, okay, we don't need to pretend anymore. We don't have to throw wide receivers and Jalen Hurts in the conversation. Oh, the best player on the best team won it. Instead, let's talk about if Sean McVay's coming back. All the shows did it, and I saw. I was watching. Kid breaks the all-time record for total yards in a season, throws for 40 touchdowns. The Chiefs' third-string running back finished the season with 2 more receiving touchdowns than Tyreek Hill did, and nobody cares. Chiefs are playing Ring Around the Rosie because they're so bored with their opposition, and everyone's like, what's next? Can we talk about Justin Herbert again? I don't know. He had an awesome throw. Here's the deal, Colin. He's the most talented player in the history of the sport. And unlike the other guy who we talked about earlier, who used to have that moniker in Aaron Rodgers, with the exception of the second half of last year's AFC title game, he has raised his game in the postseason at every single turn. And so, listen, the AFC is absolutely stacked. He has never played a road playoff game. That streak will continue this year, but he might have a neutral site playoff game. But since he's been to Kansas City, they have been the 1 or the 2 seed. They have won the division, and their worst season was 14 wins and a conference championship appearance. That's their worst season. He's the most talented player any of us have seen, and that was 90 seconds on the dot. So you just got to give me a clock. I can hit the clock, Colin. You just got to tell me.
First things first, watch it. It's very funny. Great chemistry, my buddy. Nick Wright, my friend, you look fantastic. Thanks, my man.
Thanks. See you, buddy. Bye.
It is. He's a little bit, Mahomes is a little bit of a victim of himself, is that he's so outrageously gifted. And the difference with him and Mahomes is, I always feel like, or him and Aaron Rodgers, Aaron is his own sort of independent contractor. He's connected to a few of his teammates, but he feels somewhat disconnected from sometimes the coach or the front office. Mahomes is in the party, man. He is front and center. He gets along with Andy, the GM, the owner, the receivers, Travis Kelce. He's just the glue that pulls it together, whereas Aaron's talented, but sometimes feels like he's just an independent contractor. Like he's got his house in Malibu. He's doing his own things in the summer. He's gifted, but Burrow has that feeling too. Burrow, Mahomes, they're all in. Everybody connects. Everybody's glued. Everybody feels touched and communicated with daily. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.